Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the 100 Report. I'm Chris.
I'm Charlie.
And we are very glad to be back after a little bit of a hiatus. We all made the most of our Christmas holidays, whatever they are in this mad world. How are you?
We're in a Christmas come down now, so we're back to work, back on it.
Yeah, back
and
on.
Let's hope, wishing everyone all the best for 2021. Let's hope it's more positive than last year. I am very well, thank you, Chris. I've got some really exciting news to tell you.
Okay, what is it?
So you are now looking at, or listening to, one of the newest MCC members.
Amazing!
And when I say finally, I have been on the wait list since I was 16 years old. So it's quite a long time, let's just say that. So basically, I finally have been confirmed as a fully fledged member of the MCC, which means that if we're allowed to go to any cricket this summer, guess who's going to be walking into the pavilion?
Oh, I'm very jealous. I'm going to take my seat at the Edrich stand and take some binoculars so I can see you.
The thing is, right, it's so funny. So I joined at the same time as my dad on the waiting list. And bless him, he's only 60 odd now, but he was like, the wait list is so old, I need someone to wheel me in the wheelchair to the MCC when we finally get in. But he actually lives in Spain most of the year, so most of the summer he's in Mallorca. So it's going to be me on my own going to the pavilion, trying to make some friends, sitting there, twiddling my thumbs.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will. You're very good at making friends. I guess we should talk about the cricket, because quite a lot's happened since our interview with Ali. I guess we should just jump straight into it and talk about the England-Sri Lanka Test series that, as of this time of recording, has finished a day early. It was quite fun to watch, really, wasn't it?
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. And actually what I did, because it started at 4:30am UK time, as much as I love my cricket, I also love my sleep. So what I did was I recorded it on Sky and then watched it as live at a much more manageable hour of like 9 or 10am. But it meant that I had the pretty much the whole day watching cricket, which is really lovely. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. There's a lot to talk about there. And I think that, well, first of all, we should talk about Joe Root, because I think that is the highlight for me.
I mean, it's incredible. I came across a stat that said, and this is more about his bowling, he said his bowling average is almost the same as his batting average now. So somebody sent a message into TMS saying, shall we now consider him a true all-rounder? But no, his batting was out of this world. And I was so impressed, because he was always considered to be one of those slew of top flight batsmen in the mould of Kane Williamson, Virat Kohli, Steve Smith, but he was consistently getting 50s but never capitalising on it, and I think he ended up with an average of 110 or something crazy like that after those two tests.
I love it. I think his average now in the whole of Test cricket is just bordering on 50. I think it was 49 before this series. So he certainly converted both of those 50s to centuries and some. I love the fact that he gave himself the last couple of overs on the last day, because I felt really sorry for Bess and Leach, because they were both on a forfeit. They could have both got a 5 for each, but Joe Root comes in and literally within a couple of overs he's 2 for nothing. So I found that quite funny. But no, hats off to him. He really is wanting to start this year off on a good note, and he's got a lot of work to do this year. Jonathan Agnew was saying that kind of this is the warm-up. They've won, the past couple of tests abroad, which is fantastic, but they're now kind of going from the Championship to the Premiership. They've got India, they've got Australia. It's just going to get harder and harder, but great preparation. And I think the morale in camp is going to be so high that going to India, hopefully, they'll continue with that, although India was looking pretty strong in Australia.
They were. Game. I mean, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the other hero/legend was James Anderson, with his spell where he got 6 wickets, and I think his first 25 overs went for something like 19 runs. It was ridiculous, and everybody keeps questioning James Anderson about his fitness, his age, all sorts of stuff, but he literally keeps seeming to get better and better and better, and he particularly gets a fair bit of stick about his record in Asia, but I think that particular spell against Sri Lanka will set him in good stead for India, but I don't think they can chop and change. I really honestly think that they've got to put Broad and Anderson on the team together if they have any chance of beating India in India.
And a fun fact for you, in the second test, In the first Sri Lankan innings, all 10 wickets were taken by seam attack. And in the second innings, all 10 wickets were taken by spin attack. I just thought that was incredible. And it shows the change in the pitch as well, I think, with the weather. But I think there's one other player that we really need to discuss before we talk about the opposition, is that Dan Lawrence obviously made his debut and he played so well. I mean, in the first test, obviously we kept losing the openers very cheaply. It must have been very nerve-wracking for him to see sort of top batsmen just, get completely written off after a couple of overs, and how difficult the conditions were and how amazing that the spin attack is from Sri Lanka and always has been, and under different conditions from home. And he just went in. I felt like he really played positively as well. He was on the front foot a lot. He was looking to attack. He wasn't letting it worry him, and he wasn't being too defensive. Going into the second test, his average was over 100 or something. It was crazy.
It's not bad. It's a good place to start your test career because it's really a baptism of fire. There's nothing more alien in terms of conditions for an English batsman than Sri Lankan pitches. And I think he really set himself in good stead for the future to come. But I do want to talk a little bit about the Sri Lankan players because some of those guys really impressed me. Lassie Thembaldenia, for example, was wonderful. We can't not notice that he got a 10-wicket haul against England, even though Sri Lanka lost. But I thought he was fantastic, and especially because they have such a long history of having prolific spin bowlers. You think Murali, Rangana Herath. Hopefully this is going to be it. They're going to get their next Murali, so to speak, although that's sacred ground, so we won't touch that. But one of the other ones that I really loved, and you mentioned the Australia-India series, because I think one of the big things that came across for the Australia-India series was the sledging and Tim Payne getting a hell of a lot of stick for it. One of my favourite things that happened in the Sri Lanka test series in general was listening to Narashan Dikwella's chirp behind the stumps. It was utterly hilarious.
It was amazing. I loved it so much. And I love the fact that you can pick up on so much on the stump mic. Yeah. And it's so funny because the commentators were picking up on it. They were saying, it's so funny how, Dickwella's talking to his teammates constantly, obviously as a wicketkeeper does, keeping the morale up of the team, encouraging the bowlers. And it's all spoken in native Sri Lankan tongue, right? Mm-hmm. But as soon as he wants to dig at the batsman, he switches to English, talking to his teammates like, this guy needs to do really well because he's recently been dropped. You know that? Yeah. He's not going to India. And the guy was like, really? He's like, yeah, it was announced the other day. He's not going. But he's going to India for the IPL because, he likes the cash. It was hilarious. I loved it. And then what was so funny was I was expecting Jos Buttler to come back with more because Jos got quite a lot of stick from him as well. Yeah. But it was actually Johnny Bairstow that was chirping back at him the next day. And he'd obviously done his homework that night because he was saying stuff like, you're really in need of that test century and soon the real wicketkeeper will be back, just in placement for him. And it was so funny. It
was brilliant. I think it was my highlight was when he was asking Dan Lawrence for batting tips.
But you know what, that is an example of banter that you can receive on the field, and it's kind of harmless. It's digging, it is personal, but on one level. The other level was Tim Payne, who had to kind of apologise for himself because he's done that before in the past. And as a captain, there's only so many boundaries you can push without getting too personal. But he went a bit too far, didn't he?
I think so. There's no love lost between Virat Kohli and Tim Payne. Their history speaks for themselves. I think it was 2016 the last time India went to Australia. There was quite a lot of argy-bargy between Payne and Kohli. But Australian cricket has been like that. I mean, we all remember the incident where I think it was James Anderson got threatened by Michael Clarke that he was going to get a broken arm by Mitchell Johnson. It's tough because that transcends banter. It's not funny anymore. It's just sort of threatening.
It's really personal. So I think it was Ravinder Ashwin that really got under Tim Payne's skin, and he was talking about, at least, people in my team like me and I don't have, you don't have any friends and all this stuff. And it goes from banter about the sport to being quite bullish and being a bit of a bully. I think he actually got fined 15% of his match fee for that. It also kind of opened up suggestions to do with Tim Payne himself feeling very much hot under the collar, being the captain. I don't think he's had the best time recently. And Justin Lang has been asked a lot in the press about, are you going to stick with Tim Payne as the captain? Who else is there? And Justin Lang has very much had to sort of back him like he is the person for the job. Because if you look at it, Steve Smith is definitely out of the running in terms of just how the press reacted to him sort of scuffing up the crease or whatever he did the other day. And and the only other person, a lot of, it's like Josh Hazelwood or Pat Cummings is the only two other only players that are consistently in that test team. And as you know, bowlers rarely get given the captaincy.
Exactly.
So he really had to back Tim Payne, and I feel like he probably, Justin Langer inside was like, oh, why did he have to do this? This is like highlighting an issue he doesn't want to talk about.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? But there's been a long history of bowlers just not being given the captaincy. I think the last time I remember it where a captain was a bowler first, I think might have been Daniel Vittori for New Zealand. I can't remember off the top of my head the last time there was a bowler who was a captain, and it seems like generally it's a bit verboten to do that. But as far as the other test matches that have been going on, what else have we missed since the winter?
Well, speaking of New Zealand, they were recently appointed the number one test team in the world. So hats off to them. That was a really great moment for such a lovely team.
Yeah, no mean feat there. And beating Pakistan and New Zealand. New Zealand have gone from strength to strength. And of course, they can build the team around Kane Williamson, Trent Boult, Tim Southey, and Neil Wagner. There's all kinds of talent in New Zealand, and it feels like they've been the team that almost could for such a long time that now they actually have. And it's taken me a little bit by surprise, because I always expect either India or Australia. I always hope England, but it's usually India or Australia that are the best team in the world. And it's nice to see the baton shifting a little bit to New Zealand, who I think are often forgotten in terms of the major test teams. They're usually one of the also-ran, and not quite to the scale of, I guess, maybe Ireland or Afghanistan or Zimbabwe, where you don't see them play as much, but they've really become a force to be reckoned with. And I actually think those two home tests that have just been confirmed in England are going to be very difficult, especially with their bowling attack over here.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that, and I think the first test is at Lord's, so hopefully we'll be allowed in.
Oh, yes.
That would be so cool. No, they've done a great job, and I think that you're right. They've definitely become a stronger team in the years, but they do it in such a subtle way. You don't realise they're creeping up on you because they're very understated in that respect. But we've also got some good news with Pakistan, South Africa travelling to Pakistan, which is huge for Pakistan cricket.
Definitely. I was so pleased to see it go through, and I mean, what a first day. I was a bit sad that Naseem Shah wasn't playing. I haven't actually checked. I don't know if he's injured or not, but Naseem Shah for me is the tearaway young talent for Pakistan, and I don't think he was playing today. But 14 wickets in a day, that's a fun day of test match cricket.
That sounds amazing. I actually didn't get to watch them, but I'm going to watch the highlights later because that does sound like a fun day. But speaking of injuries, obviously it was really unfortunate, just going back to Sri Lanka, that a lot of their players and their captain as well were injured for the England tour. But I do think that it was they're both test matches were really, really amazing to watch, especially that last one, which could have gone either way. At one stage, we thought they put up such a good first innings score. It was really hard to chase. And I think we got to about 60 runs, within 60 runs of their first innings score. But if it hadn't been for our bowling attack and just going through all of the players for sort of less than 20, it would have been a draw, I think, because we were playing for a draw. Or if they'd gone through us, it would have been a loss. So it could have gone either way, and it was such an exciting series to watch. But now they're in India. Now they've got other players joining them in India. Yeah. It's really put up a lot of questions to do with the England batting attack, because as we know, Rory Burns was off. I think he was on paternity leave, and he was such a good opener before. I mean, it's a real shame that neither Sibley or Crawley did themselves justice in these conditions. They really didn't do very well, whereas they had really good...
I mean, Sibley did get a half century at the end. I thought he showed his grit at the end. So I feel like Sibley has earned his stripes in my mind, just about. But I totally take your point about Crawley. Sorry, I think I've disrupted the train of thought here, so I apologise.
No, that's fine. You're right. No, Sibley did come back towards the end, but like that was just one of 4 innings. The others, I don't think he made sort of 10 or so. But no, you're right. He did come into his own at the end, and under serious pressure. So credit where credit's due. He definitely deserved that half century. He worked really, really hard for it, and to be there at the end as well with the winning runs was just great for him. But my question is now: is Rory Burns? Does he come straight back in as the opening batsman? Because before it was Burns and Sibley opening, Crawley was at 3, and then Joe Root was at 4.
Yeah,
I think Dan Lawrence has done so well as well at 5. Obviously, Ben Stokes is coming back, but do you play Burns, Crawley, Sibley? Do you have Bairstow in at 3? I think he did a really decent job in all of the innings because he came in under pressure for his place, number one, but also the fact that all these wickets were falling. He was basically an opening batsman in both of the innings.
Yeah.
Really levelled it out for England and kind of just took the edge off and just got some runs on and really just changed the dynamic. So I feel like he really deserves a spot. There are too many batsmen now. What do you do?
Yeah, it's wonderful that England are in the position where they have to find an 11 out of a potential 15 that could occupy all those spots. For me, yeah, Sibley's definitely got to stay in the team. I wouldn't want to get rid of Zach Crawley. I think him, especially implying his trade in Asia, is going to be very important for the future of the team. Not only that, he got a double 100 only 3 tests ago. I don't know. I feel like Dan Lawrence is going to make way and Ben Stokes will get fit in because I feel like that's going to be the top 5 is going to be... Well, yeah, I do think Burns is going to come back in and I think that he'll have to make way. But then how do you fit Ben Stokes in? One of the things that I question is whether Sam Curran's going to keep his spot. It's good to have a left arm angle and he has got good history playing for Chennai in the IPL and doing lots with his spot there, but we have to think of the bowling attack that's going to be needed over there. Like I wonder, I would be thrilled if Mark Wood and Jofra Archer played in the same test team on the same test match. Obviously fitness is very depending, especially for Mark Wood, but yeah, I really wouldn't want to be an England selector right now, but I really do think that Burns has established himself as that opener. So I feel like he will come back into the side. Crawley will drop to 3, Root, Stokes. Well, I don't know.
So no Bairstow, no Lawrence.
Well, I mean, has Bairstow been reselected for the tour? Because he wasn't selected, was he?
Well, he hasn't been given a test contract this year, so it's on an ad hoc basis. But he's been sent home for rest for the first 2 test matches. What's interesting is that he's then coming back and Jos Buttler is being sent home, I think, for the last test match. So I don't know if Bairstow's not played, Ben Folkes is still on the squad.
No,
so
right.
Does Ben Folkes finally get a game? Or having not had a game in Sri Lanka, surely he can't just be thrown in the deep end in India.
Well,
surely they'd go with Bairstow. So it's a bit confusing. The good thing is about having so many options is that it is working to this benefit of Chris Silverwood's doing this rotation process, and he's said in the media recently to the fans, be patient, please understand this rotation process, because everyone's sort of saying, why would you not bring Ben Stokes to Sri Lanka, and why would you rest Jos Buttler and Johnny Bairstow, and for India you want your best team at all times. But I think that last year has proven in this bio bubble that they have to live in, it's really, really mentally hard and draining, and you're away from normally they're allowed their family on tour. They're not at the moment, and they have to be in their hotel room for like the first 6 or 7 days before even starting training. And I think that they're looking at how much cricket is on this year alone is huge. They're also rotating players to get some practice in the Indian conditions for the T20 stuff. So obviously with the same coach, he's got both hats on at the same time. So I think it's really difficult, but the benefits of having the surplus amount of batsmen is that they can do this rotation process and just keep their options open. There might be injuries, there might be other factors coming up, and at least they have options here.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's going to work to the advantage because we have a back and forth about Jos Buttler being in the test team and whether it's a swap for swap with Bairstow and Buttler. This could actually be a great solution if you rotated Butler and Bairstow as the wicketkeeper. I think with Ben Foakes coming in, it's difficult because Bairstow and Butler both have huge credentials as pure batsmen, not just wicketkeepers. So it's like getting 2 for 1. I think it'd be good because I think in the same way you were talking about with Justin Langer and Tim Payne, I feel like the England management in general have talked themselves into a corner about Josh Butler. But I actually think it would be both good for English cricket and both good for each one of those two players to get a bit of a break. Because, like you said, it's hard enough for us guys being locked down. I can't imagine what it's like if you get locked down away from home and away from your family. It must be strange. Have you done one of these quarantine things? I only ask because in my job, I had to do that. I had to go away and quarantine for a week or so before I was allowed onto the job. And it's tough. And I was I wasn't in a luxury hotel or anything, but I was in a decent hotel. But still, you can't leave the room. It's pretty awful.
No, I definitely, I did one when I came back from a little getaway to Greece last summer, and it was on the list, of quarantine list. You had to stay at home for 2 weeks afterwards. And in a tiny little flat for 2 weeks in London, I definitely went stir crazy. It was really, really difficult. So yeah, I completely I like the fact that Joe Root was interviewed the other day on TMS and Agus was kind of pointing at the fact that a lot of people are sort of saying it's crazy that this person hasn't been included in that, and he said, you know what, yes, it's important to have your best team at all times, but what's more important is maintaining that, and a lot is to do with mental health, and we need to put that players' welfare as important as having our best team, because without them being tip-top mentally, you're not going to have your best team, and it's about longevity this year. We need to pace ourselves. There's a lot of cricket going on, so bear with us type thing. And I thought that was really great, the fact that they're recognising that and that they're looking after their players as much as they can in these conditions. So that's cool. Shall we move on to some 100 news?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we are the 100 Report after all.
If you forgot it.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously the IPL auction's coming up, and that is a huge auction, but the 100 auction's coming back. It's not entirely clear what's going on with the team structures. There's some news around some of the teams. So I know that London Spirit have announced that they've retained Heather Knight and Owen Morgan, respectively, as the two captains. And you heard about Welsh Fire, didn't you?
Yeah, Welsh Fire have retained a couple of players, including Tom Banton and Johnny Bairstow. I think what's happening now is the fact that each team is being allowed to retain their key players, and then the rest I think will be getting put back into the hat as such, and there's going to be another draft, because a lot of the international players were only signed for a year and weren't available this summer, but then their schedules have now changed as well, so, and some people are now injured. It's very difficult to keep the same team, and I think that what's going to happen is they're going to be allowed to retain a certain amount of people, and then there's going to be another draft for the spots that are left. So I can't wait for that draft. We'll keep you posted when we know more, because we're waiting for more announcements, but we're expecting in the next couple of months the draft hopefully it's not as confusing as last year's draft.
I hope not, but I feel like
shorter.
Yeah, we did the hard yards last time by trying to understand that draft. Hopefully, because we've done all of our homework before, it'll be a bit clearer. But the best bit of news that I've heard about the 100 recently that I think could be real big deal is Sarah Taylor did an interview with BBC talking about how she might be coaxed out of retirement to come and play the 100, which I think would be
so cool. That would
fabulous.
Be great.
She, much like Charlotte Edwards, is a trailblazer in women's cricket. She's one of the best wicket keepers that modern cricket's seen, and I think it would be a real treat to get her in there. But,
I wonder which team she's going to go for.
One has to wonder.
Also, Chris, working on something extra special. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that the next time we're going to be speaking to you guys, I will be on another podcast, and I'm really hoping we have a very, very special guest joining us next time.
Yeah. Well, as this is, I guess, our inaugural podcast of 2021, we just want to say thanks for sticking with us and welcome back. Hope you have enjoyed what we're doing, and looking forward to our next interview guest. If you haven't followed us already, we are on YouTube at The 100 Report. We are on Instagram at The 100 Report, on Twitter at 100 Report. And please do like, comment, subscribe, all that jazz. Send us your comments. We love hearing from you. But I guess until next time, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me.
Have yourself a lovely one. Stay safe, everybody, and speak soon.